Some temples are meant to bring peace, others were built around death, sacrifice, curses, and terrifying rituals that still happen today. From temples filled with thousands of rats to ancient ruins connected to human sacrifice, tonight we are exploring the most frightening temples on earth. And trust me, some of these places feel straight out of a nightmare. Imagine walking into a temple where funeral fires never stop burning. That's exactly what happens at Pashupatinath Temple in Kathmandu, Nepal. One of the holiest Hindu temples in the world, and honestly one of the most unsettling places you can visit. The temple stands beside the Magmati River, and along the river banks are open-air cremation platforms. Families bring the bodies of loved ones here, place them on wooden pyres, and cremate them in public view. Day and night, smoke rises into the sky while ashes drift through the air. For Hindus, this is deeply sacred. Many believe cremation here helps the soul escape the cycle of rebirth and reach spiritual liberation. But for outsiders, the experience can feel shocking. And then there are the sadhus. These wandering holy men cover themselves in ash, sometimes even cremation ash, and spend their lives meditating around death. Some sit silently near the fires for hours, staring into the flame as bodies burn nearby. At night, the atmosphere becomes even stranger. The orange glow of the fires reflects on the river while chants echo through the darkness. Dogs wander between the stone steps, smoke hangs low in the air, and everything feels suspended, somewhere between the world of the living and the dead. Even locals say the energy there is intense. What makes the temple especially creepy isn't ghosts or legends, it's the fact that death is completely visible. In many countries, death is hidden away behind hospital walls and funeral homes. Here it happens openly, right in front of you. Visitors often describe feeling uncomfortable at first, but strangely peaceful later. It forces you to think about mortality in a way most places never do, and honestly, that might be more disturbing than any horror movie. Most people panic when they see one rat. Now imagine walking barefoot through a temple filled with more than 20,000 of them. Welcome to Karni Mata Temple in Rajasthan, India, better known as the Rat Temple. The moment you step inside, you hear it. Tiny scratching sounds echo across the marble floors while rats run across railing, glimpse over statues, and squeeze between visitors' feet. And yes, you're required to remove your shoes before entering. For many people, that alone sounds like a nightmare. But here the strange part, the rats are protected and worshipped. According to local belief, these animals are the reincarnated souls of followers of Karni Mata, a female Hindu mystic believed to have possessed supernatural powers centuries ago. Instead of passing into the afterlife, their souls suspendedly entire the bodies of rats living inside the temple. The rats are called kabas, and harming one is considered a serious sin. In fact, if someone accidentally steps on a rat and kills it, traditions say they must replace it with a solid silver or gold rat statue. Every day, caretakers feed the rats massive bowls of milk and grain. Visitors often sit nearby watching them eat, completely unfazed as hundreds of rodents crawl around them. Some even believe it's good luck if a rat runs across your feet. And then there are the white rats. Only a few live in the temple, and spotting one is considered extremely lucky because people believe they are sacred manifestations of Karni Mata herself. Still, for outsiders, the experience feels deeply unsettling. The combination of darkness, movement, squeaking sounds, and thousands of glowing eyes staring from corners creates a scene that feels almost unreal. Yet despite how terrifying it may seem to tourists, the temple remains an important spiritual site visited by thousands of worshippers every year. And honestly, the contrast is what makes it so creepy. Because while your brain is screaming that something is wrong, everyone around you act like this is completely normal. At first glance, Wat Ron Kun looks almost magical. The entire temple shines bright white under the sun, covered in mirrored glass that sparkles from every angle. People often call it the White Temple, and from a distance it honestly looks like something from a fantasy movie. But the closer you get, the stranger it becomes. Because before visitors can even enter the temple, they have to cross a bridge over what looks like hell itself. Hundreds of sculpted hands stretch out from the ground beneath you, reaching upward as if desperate to escape. Some heads are twisted in agony, others clutch skulls or distorted faces. It feels like souls trapped in internal suffering. and suddenly the beautiful White Temple doesn't feel so welcoming anymore. The temple was designed by Thai artist Chalermachai Kasitpipat, who wanted it to represent the journey from temptation and human suffering toward enlightenment. The pit of reaching hands symbolized greed, desire, and damnation. But even knowing the meaning behind it doesn't make the experience less creepy. Inside, things become even more surreal. Unlike traditional Buddhist temples, the interior walls contain bizarre modern imagery mixed with religious symbolism. You can spot scenes involving destruction, demons, skulls, disasters, and even references to modern pop culture hidden among the paintings. It creates this strange feeling that the temple exists somewhere between spirituality and nightmare. And then there's the silence. Despite being one of Thailand's most famous attractions, many visitors say the atmosphere inside feels oddly tense and unsettling. The bright white exterior almost tricks your brain into expecting peace and comfort, which makes the darker imagery hit even harder. At sunset, the temple becomes even more eerie. The white structure slowly turns grey under fading light, while reflections from thousands of mirrors flicker like tiny moving spirits. Some locals even avoid visiting after dark. What makes Wan Ron Kun especially disturbing is the contrast. It's beautiful, but deeply unsettling at the same time. The temple constantly shifts between serenity and horror depending on where you look, and honestly, that psychological confusion is part of what makes it unforgettable. Few temples in the world look as dramatic as Tanah Lot. Perched on top a rocky island just off the coast of Bali, the temple rises out of the ocean like something ancient and mythical. During sunset, the silhouette looks beautiful, but during storms or at night, it becomes genuinely intimidating. Huge waves slam against the cliffs below while dark water surrounds the temple on every side, and according to local legends, the place is guarded by supernatural forces. Tanah Lot was built centuries ago as part of Bali's sacred sea temple network. Balinese Hindu traditions say the temple protects the island from evil spirits coming from the ocean, but the creepiest stories involve the snakes. Locals believe venomous sea snakes living in the rocks beneath the temple as sacred guardians created by a holy priest centuries ago. Some legends even claim the snakes protect the temple from evil intruders and dark spirits. Whether the stories are true or not, people still treat the area with deep respect. At high tide, the temple becomes completely isolated from land, surrounded by violent water. Watching it during rough weather feels almost apocalyptic, like the ocean itself is trying to swallow the structure whole. And then there's the atmosphere after sunset. As tourists leave, the sound of waves becomes louder, the wind picks up, and the cliffs fall into darkness. The temple slowly disappears into shadow while sea mist drifts across the rocks. Many visitors describe feeling strangely uneasy there at night, even though the location is incredibly beautiful during the day. Part of that fear probably comes from Bali itself. The island has a deeply spiritual culture where people openly talk about spirits, curses, protective rituals, and unseen beings. Small offerings sit outside homes and temples everywhere. For locals, the supernatural world isn't just mythology, it's part of everyday life. And Tanah Lot sits right at the center of many of those beliefs. That combination of natural power, isolation, and spiritual legends give the temple an atmosphere that feels almost alive, like the ocean is guardian a secret nobody fully understands. Most temples are meant to feel peaceful. Mehandipur Balaji temple feels like that exact opposite. Located in Rajasthan, India, this temple is famous for one terrifying reason. Most people believe it can cure demonic possession, and the things visitors claim to see there are deeply disturbing. From the moment you arrive, the atmosphere feels chaotic. Crowds push through narrow corridors while priests chant loudly over the sound of bells, crying and screaming. Some visitors suddenly burst into tears, others shake violently or collapse to the ground during rituals. According to local belief, many of these people are possessed by evil spirits. The temple is dedicated to Balaji, a form of Hindu god Hanuman, who is believed to have the power to drive demons away. Families travel from across India, bringing relatives they believe are under supernatural influence, and the rituals performed there can be intense. Witnesses describe people shouting uncontrollably, banging their heads against walls, or staring silently for hours. Some claim possessed individuals react violently during prayers, almost as if something inside them is resisting. Whether you believe in possession or not, the scenes can be genuinely frightening. Even stranger are the temple's rules. Visitors are warned not to eat food from strangers, not to touch certain people during rituals, and most famously, never look back while leaving the temple. According to legend, looking back allows spirits to follow you home. Many locals take that warning very seriously. Photography is also heavily discouraged in some areas, which only adds to the mystery surrounding the place. Stories spread online about tourists feeling sick afterward, hearing strange noises, or having nightmares after visiting. Of course, skeptics argue there are psychological explanations for many of the behaviors seen at the temple. Some researchers point to mass hysteria, trauma, or untreated mental illness. But standing inside Mehandipur Balaji, surrounded by screams, smoke, prayers, and terrifying families, it's easy to understand why people leave feeling unsettled. Because even if you don't believe in demons, the fear there is absolutely real, and honestly, something human fear is scarier than any ghost story. Imagine carving an entire temple out of a single mountain, not building it with stone blocks, not stacking pieces together, actually cutting the entire structure downward from solid rock. That's Kailasa Temple. Located in the Ellora cave complex in India, this massive ancient temple is one of the greatest architectural mysteries on earth, and honestly, seeing it in person feels almost unreal. The temple was carved directly into a cliff over 1,000 years ago. Workers removed an estimated hundreds of thousands of tons of rocks to create it, and somehow they did it with ancient tools. What makes it even stranger is the precision. Massive pillars, staircases, statues, halls, shrines, and intricate carvings were all created from one single piece of stone. There are no separate blocks holding it together because the entire structure is literally part of the mountain itself. Even modern engineers still debate exactly how such a project was completed, and once you enter the darker inner chambers, the place becomes genuinely eerie. The air suddenly cools, sunlight fades behind you, footsteps echo through long stone corridors, while giant carved figures emerge from the shadows. Some visitors describe feeling incredibly small inside the temple, almost overwhelmed by the scale of it. Others say it feels strangely unnatural, like something humans shouldn't have been capable of creating so long ago. That mystery has fueled countless theories. Some people believe the temple must have taken centuries to complete. Others point to ancient legends claiming divine beings helped construct it. And naturally, more extreme theories involving lost civilization or supernatural knowledge have appeared online over the years. Most historians reject those ideas, but the mystery remains impressive either way. What also adds to the temple's unsettling atmosphere is its age. You're walking through spaces carved over a millennium ago by people whose names are mostly forgotten. Entire generations lived and died while creating these halls, and somehow the structure still stands almost perfectly intact. At certain moments, Kailasa Temple doesn't feel abandoned, it feels frozen in time, like the mountain itself is remembering something ancient. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia, there is a temple that looks like less historical site and more like the ruins of a lost civilization shallowed by nature. This is Ta Prohm, and honestly it might be one of the most haunted places on earth. Unlike many ancient temples that were restored and cleaned up, Ta Prohm was intentionally left almost exactly the way explorers found it. Massive jungle trees grow directly through the stone walls, their roots twisting around doorways and crushing ancient structures like giant serpents. Some roots are thicker than cars, and the strangest part is how silent the place feels. The deeper you walk in the ruins, the more isolated everything becomes. Sunlight barely reaches certain corridors, wind moves through broken hallways, birds echo somewhere high above the trees, and genuinely feels like the jungle is alive. Ta Prohm was originally built in the late 12th century during the Khmer Empire and once functioned as a massive Buddhist monastery and university. Historical records suggest thousands of monks, servants, and workers lived there, but over time the empire collapsed, the city was abandoned, and the jungle slowly reclaimed everything. For centuries the temple had sat hidden beneath dense vegetation, and honestly that abandonment is part of what makes it so creepy. Unlike polished tourist attractions, Ta Prohm still feels wild and forgotten. Cracked walls lean as strange angels. Empty windows stare into the forest. Long dark passageways disappear into shadow. You constantly feel like someone could be standing just out of sight. The temple became even more famous after appearing in movies like Tomb Raider. which honestly makes sense because the entire place already looks cinematic. But the real atmosphere is far stranger than any film. Many visitors describe a strange emotional feeling there, almost like sadness mixed with awe. You're surrounded by evidence that an entire civilization once thrived here and then vanished. Nature didn't just damage the temple, it consumed it, and in some areas it's hard to tell where architecture ends and jungle begins. Stone and roots have fused together so completely that they almost look like one living organism. During foggy mornings or rainy afternoons, the ruins become especially unsettling. Water drips from broken ceiling while tree branches sway above the collapsed courtyards. It feels ancient, forgotten, almost cursed. And maybe that's why the prom leaves such a strong impression on people. It reminds you that no matter how powerful civilization become, eventually nature takes everything back. Egypt is already filled with places that feel mysterious, but the temple of Seti I in Abydos stands out even among the country's ancient ruins, because this temple has become famous for one very strange reason: carvings that some people believe resemble modern machines. And once you see them, it's honestly hard to forget. The temple was built more than 3,000 years ago by Pharaoh Seti I and completed by his son Ramses II. It was dedicated to the gods of the afterlife and played an important role in ancient Egyptian religious rituals. By deep inside, the structure is bizarre, making that sparked endless theories online. Some visitors claim certain carvings look almost identical to helicopters, submarines, or aircraft. Naturally, conspiracy theories exploded. People started suggesting everything from lost advanced civilizations to ancient extraterrestrials, helping the Egyptians build their empire. Historians of course have a much simpler explanation. Most experts believe the strange shapes appeared because older carvings were partially erased and overwritten over time, creating accidental layered symbols. But even with a logical explanation, the imagery still feels unsettling when you're standing there in person. And honestly, the atmosphere inside the temple is already eerie enough on its own. Unlike the crowded pyramids, parts of Abydos feel strangely quiet and isolated. Lone stone corridors stretch into darkness while ancient carvings cover nearly every wall. Massive columns rise overhead, worn down by thousands of years of history. The deeper you go, the heavier the silence feels. Ancient Egyptians believed Abydos was closely connected to Osiris, god of the dead and ruler of the underworld. For centuries, pilgrims traveled there believing it was one of the most sacred spiritual locations in Egypt, which means countless rituals connected to death were once performed inside these halls. And then there are the curse stories. Like many ancient Egyptian sites, rumors of supernatural energy and bad luck surrounded the temple. Some visitors claim cameras malfunctioned there. Others describe sudden feeling of dread of being watched while exploring certain chambers. Whether the stories are true or not, the temple definitely has an atmosphere that gets under your skin, especially at dusk. As sunlight fades, the carvings become harder to distinguish, shadows grow longer, and the temple starts feeling less like a historical monument and more like a doorway into another world. In the middle of Java, Indonesia, stands a temple complex that looks beautiful during the day, but at night it feels completely different. Tall black towers rise sharply into the sky like giant stone knives, and shadows swallow the spaces between them. Wind moves through the empty courtyards while the ancient structures creak softly in the darkness. This is Prambanan, and according to local legend, the entire temple is connected to a curse. The story centers around a princess named Roro Jongkaran. Legend says a powerful prince wanted to marry her after conquering her kingdom, but she hated him and tried to escape the marriage by giving him an impossible task: build 1,000 temples in a single night. Using supernatural spirit, the prince almost succeeded. Terrified, the spirits into believing dawn had arrived before the work was finished. Enraged by the deception, the prince cursed her and turned her into stone, making her the final statue needed to complete the Thousand Temples. Locals still associate one of the temple statues with the cursed princess herself, and honestly, once you hear the story, the entire place starts feeling much darker. Prambanan was built in the 9th century and remains one of the largest Hindu temple complexes in Southeast Asia. The towering central temples are dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, but many surrounding structures now stand partially ruined after earthquakes and centuries of damage. That destruction adds to atmosphere. Broken stones lie scattering around the complex while dark passageways cut through ancient walls. At certain angles, the temple almost resembles giant silhouettes watching over the landscape. At night the place becomes especially eerie. Mist sometimes forms around the towers during cooler evenings, and the dim lighting creates long moving shadows across the stone carvings. Even tourists who arrive expecting a normal historical site often admit the atmosphere feels strangely unsettling after dark. Some locals believe spirits still wander the complex. Stories circulate about ghostly figures appearing near the ruins, mysterious sounds echoing between the temples, and sudden cold sensation felt by visitors walking alone. Whether the stories are true or not, Prambanan definitely has a heavy atmosphere tied deeply to mythology and tragedy. And honestly, the cursed princess legend makes the entire place feel almost cinematic, like a horror story carved directly into stone. Varanasi is considered one of the holiest cities in India, but hidden among its temples, its cremation grounds are stories that many outsiders find deeply disturbing, because this is where the Aghori live. The Aghori are an extreme sect of Shaivite ascetics devoted to the Hindu god Shiva, and their rituals are unlike almost anything most people have ever seen. They meditate near cremation fires, they cover themselves in ash from burned bodies, and according to some accounts, they use human skulls during spiritual ceremonies. To outsiders, it sounds terrifying, but for the Aghori, these rituals are meant to destroy fear and attachment to the physical world. They believe everything in existence is sacred, including death itself. Still, witnessing their practices can feel genuinely unsettling. Many Aghori gather near the ghats of Varanasi, where cremation happens constantly beside the Ganges river. Fires burn day and night, while smoke rises into the sky and chants echo through the narrow streets. Some Aghoris sit silently beside the cremation grounds for hours, meditating among ashes and flames. Others wear necklaces made from bones or carry skull-shaped poles used in rituals. Naturally, stories and rumors surrounding them have become increasingly extreme over the years. Some claim the Aghori possess supernatural powers. Others believe they can communicate with spirits or survive deadly poisons through spiritual practices. There are even urban legends involving forbidden rituals performed deep within isolated temples at night. Many of those stories are exaggerated, but the atmosphere surrounding the Aghori remains intensely mysterious. And honestly, part of what makes them so frightening is how differently they view death compared to most people. In many cultures, death is hidden away, feared and avoided. The Aghori embrace is completely. Visitors who encounter them often describe a strange mix of fear and fascination. Some Aghori appear calm and peaceful, others look almost otherworldly, with ash-covered skin, long hair and piercing stares that make people immediately uncomfortable. At night, near the riverbanks of Varanasi, the experience becomes even more surreal. Flames from cremation pyres flicker in the darkness, while chants drift through smoke-filled air. It feels less like modern world and more like stepping into something ancient and forbidden. Hidden among the jungles of southern Thailand sits a temple surrounded by strange legends, terrifying climbs, and stories that still unsettle visitors today. This is Tiger Cave Temple, and despite the peaceful name, the place has an atmosphere that can feel genuinely intimidating. The temple gets its name from a local legend claiming a giant tiger once lived inside the cave beneath the complex. Monks reportedly heard the animal roaring through the jungle at night, and some even claimed to see massive paw prints around the area. Whether these stories were true or not, the legend stayed, but honestly, the tiger story is probably the least unsettling thing about this place. To reach the main shrine at the top of the mountain, visitors must climb more than 1200 steps through a dense tropical forest, and the climb feels endless. The heat is intense, the air gets heavy, monkeys watch from the trees while the jungle grows strangely quiet the higher you go. Some sections of the staircase are so steep they almost feel vertical. And then there are the caves themselves. Below the mountain are dark meditation caves, where monks have spent years in isolation. Some are barely lit at all, others disappear deep into the rock, filled with silence broken only by dripping water and echoes from unseen chambers. Many visitors describe feeling deeply uneasy inside them. Part of that fear comes from the stories surrounding the temple. Local legends speak about spirits inhabiting the jungle around the mountain, while some monks have reportedly described strange experiences during meditation, shadowy figures, whispers, or feeling of being watched. Even skeptics admit the atmosphere can mess with your head. After hours climbing through exhausting heat and isolation, the combination of darkness, silence, and ancient caves starts feeling surreal. And once you finally reach the summit, the view is incredible, but also strangely eerie. A giant golden Buddha overlooks miles of jungle stretching endlessly into the distance. Wind roars across the mountain top, while clouds drift below the cliffs. Standing there feels almost disconnected from reality, especially near sunset. As daylight fades, the jungle below slowly darkens into one massive black landscape. The staircase disappears into shadow, and the entire temple feels isolated from the rest of the world, like a place balanced somewhere between peace and danger. And honestly, that contrast is what makes Tiger Cave Temple unforgettable. It's beautiful, spiritual, and calming, while also feeling slightly terrifying the entire time. The entrance to Batu Caves looks impressive during the day. A gigantic golden statue stands outside enormous limestone cliffs, while colorful stairs lead upward toward the cave temples hidden inside. But once you enter the caves themselves, the atmosphere changes completely. The light fades fast, the temperature drops, and suddenly you're standing inside a massive underground chamber that feels ancient, dark, and strangely alive. Batu Caves, located near Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, are among the most important Hindu religious sites outside India. The caves are believed to be around 400 million years old, making them far older than human civilization itself. And honestly, they feel ancient. Huge ceilings rise high above visitors like the inside of mountain-sized cathedral. Water drips constantly from the rock, while echoes bounce endlessly through the darkness. Then you start noticing the sounds. Bats moving overhead, wings fluttering somewhere beyond sight, strange echoes from deeper parts of the cave. It becomes very easy to imagine why ancient people considered places like these sacred or feared. The caves are dedicated primarily to the Hindu god Murugan and attract enormous crowds during the Thaipusam festival, where some devotees perform intense acts of devotion involving body piercing, hooks, and elaborate rituals. For outsiders, witnessing these ceremonies can feel almost surreal. But even during quiet periods, Batu Caves still carry a strange atmosphere. Part of that comes from the scale of the place. Humans look tiny inside the massive caverns. The darkness beyond certain pathways feels endless, and some areas remain dimly lit even during the daytime. The combination of natural cave formations and giant religious statues creates this unusual feeling that you're somewhere between a temple and the entrance to another world. And then there are the monkeys. Large groups of macacos roam freely throughout the caves and staircases, sometimes behaving aggressively toward tourists. They appear suddenly from railings, cave openings, or shadows overhead, adding another layer of unpredictability to the experience. During storms, the caves become especially unsettling. Thunder echoes through the chambers while rainwater pools from the ceilings like waterfalls. The entire mountain seems alive. Many visitors leave Batu Caves amazed, others leave uncomfortable without fully understanding why. Maybe it's the darkness, maybe it's the sheer scale of the caves, or maybe some of places simply trigger something ancient in the human brain. The same fear our ancestors probably feel when entering deep caves thousands of years ago. Long before the arrival of the Aztecs, a massive ancient city rose from the landscape of central Mexico. Its name was Teotihuacan. At its peak, it was one of the largest cities on Earth, filled with towering pyramids, wide stone avenues, enormous temples dedicated to mysterious gods. And among those structures stood one of the most disturbing temples in the ancient world, the Temple of Feathered Serpent. At first glance, the temple looks beautiful. Stone serpent heads line the walls, while intricate carvings cover the structure with symbols tied to the god Quetzalcoatl, the featherhead serpent deity worshipped throughout Mesoamerica. But beneath the temple, archaeologists uncovered something horrifying: human remains. Not just a few skeletons, hundreds. Many of the bodies appeared to be sacrificial victims buried during the temple's construction around 2000 years ago. Some were found with their hands behind their back. Others wore ceremonial jewelry or obsidian blades around their neck. Researchers believe they may have been warriors, prisoners, or people sacrificed to honor the gods and strengthen the power of the city. And honestly, realizing how many people died there completely changing the feeling of the place. Suddenly, the temple doesn't look ancient. It feels dangerous. Teotihuacan itself remains deeply mysterious because historians still don't fully understand who originally built it. By the time the Aztecs discovered the city centuries later, it had already been abandoned for generations. Even they believed the ruins carried supernatural significance. The name Teotihuacan roughly translated to the place where gods were born, and standing among the temple, it's easy to understand why ancient people viewed the city with awe and fear. The feathered serpent temple sits partially hidden within the massive complex, surrounded by silence and heavy stone structures. The serpent caravans stare outward with frozen expressions, while dark stairways climb toward the upper levels. During cloudy weather or late evening, the ruins become especially unsettling. Wind moves through the empty plazas, shadows stretch across the stones, and the ancient carvings begin to look almost alive. Some visitors describe feeling strangely uncomfortable there, even before learning about the sacrifices. Others say the site carries an oppressive atmosphere unlike anywhere else in Mexico. Maybe that feeling comes from history itself, because unlike fictional horror stories, the violence connected to this temple was completely real. Real rituals, real fear, real human sacrifice. And somehow, after 2000 years, that darkness still seems to linger among the ruins, which honestly makes the Temple of the Feathered Serpent one of the most chilling temples on earth. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you next video. Bye bye.